In a recent video, I took a look back at the career of Asafa Powell to examine the progression of an athlete who specialised in the 100 metres. Powell ran by far the most races under the 10-second mark of any athlete, and when it comes to the 200 metres, this season we have seen an athlete break the 20-second mark more than any other athlete in history. With his 19.47 run in London in July this year, Noah Lyles set a new record of 35 sub-20-second races in the 200 metres, and as of today his total tally stands at 38. The man to hold this record before Lyles was none other than Usain Bolt, who ran his final sub-20 race in the 2016 Olympic final in Rio when he was 29 years old, and given the recent statements made by Lyles, this isn't the only record of Bolt's that he wants to break. In this video, we're going to take a look back at the career of Noah Lyles so far to see how his sprinting ability has developed and ask what exactly makes him so fast. Lyles was born on the 18th of July 1997 and his preferred event in track and field growing up was the high jump, but after he began improving as a sprinter in freshman year of high school, he transitioned fully into sprinting. Lyles has said that when he was sprinting in high school, he had a poor start but a strong finish, so he quickly found his place running the 200 metres. His first recorded races were in 2012, during the summer in which he turned 15 years old, and his fastest time of the season was 21.82, while also recording a 22.09 run when he was still 14. His average time for the season across 6 races was 22.12. In 2013, Lyles opened up his season with what would turn out to be his fastest time of the year with 21.26, while his average over 10 races came to 21.65. In 2014, Lyles ran a total of 15 200 metre races, coming to an average time of 21.24. He competed at the Youth Olympics in China and set a new PB of 20.71 in the semi-final, then comfortably won the final with a time of 20.8, showing he was definitely a talent to look out for in the coming years. In 2015, he made a significant improvement in the 100 metres, taking his personal best from 10.45 to 10.14, and in the 200 metres, he lowered his PB to a very impressive 20.18, with a season average of 20.88 across 10 races. Moving into the 2016 season, which would be Lyles' final year of high school, he qualified to compete in the US Olympic trials, and went to the trials with the belief he could make the team. He won his heat in a very impressive time of 20.04 with a strong tailwind, something which gained him a lot of attention from scouts of Nike and Adidas. Lyles won his semi-final and lined up for the final as one of 2 finalists who were 18 years old, along with Michael Norman. Lyles finished in 4th place, missing out on making the team by under a tenth of a second, which is something he could definitely take positives from. Lyles made it clear that he didn't want to go to college, but rather turn pro straight out of high school, which he did by signing with Adidas, the brand that his father also represented when he ran track. Coming from a strong sporting family, both Lyles' father and mother competed in track at Seton Hall University, and his father went on to represent America in the 4x400 metres and recorded a personal best of 45.01 in the quarter mile. Noah's brother Josephus, who is 1 year younger, also signed a contract with Adidas after Noah's performance at the Olympic trials, and he would also go on to specialise in the 200, with his current PB standing at 19.93. For the 2016 season, Lyles' average time across 6 races came to 20.26, but despite ending his 200 metre season after the trials, he would continue to compete in the 100 metres by running at the Under-20 World Championships, taking gold in the final after seeing off tough competition from the likes of Filippo Tortu. Lyles also ran the anchor leg for the USA in the 4x1 relay, making up a slight deficit and showcasing his great finishing speed to take the victory. Having signed with Adidas, Lyles was now being coached by Lance Brodman, who is known for coaching some of the world's best athletes, including the American record holder in the 100 metres, Tyson Gay. When watching the warm-ups of American athletes, after they've completed their stretching, it's common to see them implement drills such as A skips, B skips and C skips, and in the case for Lyles specifically, we see him using hurdle mobility before he starts running. When we take a look at the warm-ups of Jamaican athletes, we often see them place little to no emphasis on flexibility drills in favour of performing runs where they gradually pick up their speed from low pace to high pace. Here we can see the contrast between Usain Bolt and the American athlete Wallace Spearman in terms of their warm-up routines before the 2008 Olympic final. There are examples of Lyles doing acceleration drills in training, but it's hard to tell from the footage available to what degree he ramps up the pace and how many runs he does. Something also worth mentioning about Lyles' stretching routine is that he does quite a lot of band stretching. When we get into the workout itself, he has training days split so that on speed specific days he'll cover shorter distances like 40, 60 and 80 meters, with footage of him performing these from 3-point starts with technology to capture his speed, as well as footage of him performing flies, meaning he has a moving start before he accelerates properly. He also performs block starts with training partners, which keeps the competitive edge going in training. And on longer sprint days, there's footage of him doing sessions with multiple 300 meter runs below max effort. It's likely that Lyles does quite a bit of over distance training as a 200 meter sprinter, particularly in the off season. In 2017, Lyles will begin running on the pro circuit and had an impressive first race in the Diamond League by recording his first sub-20 with 19.90 in Shanghai. He entered the US Championships with a great chance of becoming the number 1 200 meter sprinter in the country heading into the World Championships, but after winning his heat, he pulled out before the semi-finals with a hamstring strain. His average time across 4 races came to 20.15. 2018 can be considered Lyles' true breakout year, as he showed immediate improvements in the 100 metres, running under 10 seconds legally for the first time in Kingston, then winning the US Championships in a PB time of 9.88. With no major championships taking place that year, Lyles may have made improving his 100 metres a priority, since he ran 9 times in the 100 and 5 times in the 200. In the 200 metres, he ran under 19.7 a staggering 4 times, with his season's best of 19.65 coming in Monaco. His season average was just a fraction slower at 19.70. In 2019, Lyles again opened his season by running 100 metre races, running a new PB in Shanghai in May, before opening up in the 200, where his sights were set on winning his first World Championships medal in Doha later that year. In his second 200 metre race of the year, he shattered his PB by running 19.50 in Lausanne, which at the time made him the 4th fastest athlete in history over the distance. Lyles came first at the US Championships, then went to the World Championships with big ambitions of both winning the gold and running his fastest ever time. In the World Champs final, he had to work harder for the win than expected, and he said afterwards that he was disappointed with the time he ran, but not just settling for 1 gold medal, he also anchored the US relay team to victory in the 4x1 with some extremely fluid running down the home straight. His season average across his 10 races in the 200 metres for 2019 was 19.91. In 2020, Lyles had a similar season average, having ran just 3 proper races in the 200 that season, when we exclude his 185 metre run that he did where the organisers mistakenly set his blocks at the wrong start line. With 2021 now being the Olympic year, and Lyles holding the world lead for the past 3 consecutive seasons, many people would have had Lyles as the favourite to take gold in Tokyo, but this would be the first time where things didn't quite go as smoothly for him as in previous years. Lyles had planned to double up in both the 1 and 200 at the Olympics, but with arguably the deepest pool of talent we've seen at the US trials, Lyles finished 3rd in both his heat and semi-final while running sub-10, then finished in 7th place in the final, a race where 9.89 was only good enough for 4th place. In the 200 metres at US trials, Lyles was drawn against the 17-year-old Arian Knighton in the heats and slowed up before the line, allowing Knighton to progress in first place with 20.04, a time which broke Lyles' record for the fastest time ran by a high schooler at the trials. In the semi-finals, the two were drawn again with the same race outcome, except this time Knighton ran a time of 19.88 to break Usain Bolt's world junior record, and people were starting to question whether Knighton's dramatic improvement could lead to him beating Lyles in the final. When it came to the final, Lyles regained his form and won the race in signature fashion with a strong finish, while Knighton managed to achieve a 3rd place finish to also secure his place on the team. At the Olympics, Lyles appeared to be running well within himself and was winning his semi-final until he slowed down sharply before the line to drop from first to third place, in action which would give him a suboptimal lane of lane 3 for the final. Lyles appeared to come out harder than usual in the final and looked to be in a good position coming onto the home straight, but he began to fade as the race progressed and the grass finished ahead of him to take goals, with Bednarek and Lyles completing the podium taking silver and bronze. This result fell short of his expectations, but he still went on to remind people of his ability after the Olympics, with a world-leading time of 19.52 at the Prefontaine Classic, the second fastest race of his career at that point. For 2021, Lyles had an average time of 19.90 across 8 races. Lyles' philosophy with regards to the 200 metres is that it's a finesse race, so he lets his speed build gradually rather than being overly aggressive straight out of the blocks. He has mentioned in interviews that since high school his start was a weak point, and while he has done everything possible to improve his start, which has paid off and eventually made him a middle of the pack starter in elite lineups, it's most likely the same thing that allows him to have great speed maintenance that also makes him not so naturally explosive out of the blocks. While Lyles does have a decent amount of muscle mass, we can see from his junior years that he has a naturally narrow frame and is very limb dominant with a short torso. One theory as to why Lyles is so fast is that having a naturally light frame allows him to expend less energy per stride than stockier competitors, since more LBM requires more oxygen, although less LBM can mean less potential for generating power in the initial stages of the race. Lyles benefited from the physical advantages specific to him that allowed him to beat his competition even without the cleanest form, but he would go on to work on developing his weak points, which brought him to the next level. Of course you can point to stockier sprinters who have major success in the 200, but like Lyles, they were known for being better finishers than starters, which made them outliers when compared to most athletes of similar build. Lyles used to take short choppy steps coming out of the blocks to get his foot back on the ground as quickly as possible, but he has since changed his approach to being more patient and taking full length steps. Carl Lewis likened the start of a race to pushing a car, with each step taking less work as you begin to pick up speed. While Lyles does implement a drive phase which Lewis doesn't, both athletes are similar in the sense that they only seem to excel in the race once they build momentum from fully upright running. I've spoken before about how the ratio of force directed in the horizontal direction versus the vertical direction changes for an athlete throughout the race, with an explosive athlete like Sue having a high percentage of his force directed horizontally at the start of the race, but it declines sharply. Based solely on observation, Lyles looks like an athlete who directs a lower amount of force horizontally at the start of the race, but has a more gradual decline of horizontal force as the race progresses. With the World Athletics Championships being hosted in Oregon in 2022, Lyles had an ideal opportunity to put the USA back in the gold medal position given his familiarity with the Hayward Field track. He chose not to compete in the 100 metres besides from a few one-off meets, and in the 200 metres he opened his season well, running 19.61 in New York in his third race of the season. With Knighton opening his season with a time of 19.49, which ranked him just ahead of Lyles all time, Lyles said that he cancelled dinner plans upon hearing it so that he could be completely rested for his upcoming meet. When it came to the US Championships, Lyles decided to run every round despite having a bye to the World Champs, but he showed Knighton he was still the man to beat by holding his speed for longer and passing him out just before the tape. At the World Champs, Lyles showed what kind of form he was in by going sub 20 in the heats, then dropping the fastest ever semi-final time of 19.62. In the final, Lyles got the best start of his career, and he said that after a few steps he knew the race was over, and coming around the bend, it was the first race where he could sense nobody nearby him. He widened the gap even more on the home straight, and finished in a time that originally read 19.32, but was rounded down by 100th of a second to make him the new holder of the American record. He finished out his season by running 3 more fast times on the Diamond League circuit, and after a total of 12 200 metre races, his season average came to a remarkable time of 19.67, with every race of the season being below 20 seconds. Coming into 2023, there is a lot of talk about how much faster Lyles could go, with Lyles saying himself that his coach was holding him back on the volume of training runs he did at his fastest speeds in 2022 because he needed to see proof first that he could go below 19.5 in competition. Having demonstrated 19.3 in competition, Lyles said his coach would allow for more volume in training at higher speeds, which he expected would allow him to go even faster in competition. With the target for 2023 being to win 100 and 200 gold in Budapest, Lyles ran indoors to work on his start and achieved a PB in the 60 metres. He ran in the 100 metres at a number of meets to prepare him for the US Champs, where he would only compete in the 100 with a number of big names missing from the final. Coming into Budapest, Darnell Hughes had the world lead, but Lyles showed he meant business by running the fastest time in the semis while looking pumped up, and when it came to the final, he delivered his best performance in the event to date, running a new PB of 9.83 to take the gold. With this being his first time doubling up at World Champs, it was hard to know if he would experience any fatigue, but he did show promising form in the 200 leading up to the championships, with a season's best of 19.47 in London, which meant that the prospect of him running his fastest ever race seemed to be on the table. He ran the fastest time of the semi-finals by a wide margin, and in the final he finished with a time of 19.52, which allowed him to win comfortably, but did fall a bit below the super high expectations that had been set. Regardless of it not being a new PB, it was still the joint 5th fastest time of his career, and most importantly, it earned him his 3rd consecutive World Championships gold in the 200 metres. Lyles collected 3 gold medals in total in Budapest after anchoring the USA to victory in the 4x100 metre final, making him the first athlete since Usain Bolt in 2015 to complete the triple at the World Championships. Lyles ran in the Zurich Diamond League for his 8th 200 metre race of the season, leaving him a season's average time of 19.78. Lyles alluded to the possibility of shutting his season down because of all of the media opportunities he would have in the weeks after arriving back in the US. When it comes to men's sprinting, it's quite clear who the greatest athlete to ever compete in both the 100 and 200 metres is. In previous videos, I've made the case for different athletes being deserving of the title of the second best 100 metre sprinter, and for this video, I'd like to compare some athletes to see who is most deserving of the title of the second greatest 200 metre sprinter. Starting with World Championship victories, seeing as they're a large element in defining Lyles' greatness, only 4 athletes have won 200 metre gold more than once, with those being Calvin Smith with 2, Michael Johnson with 2, Noah Lyles with 3 and Usain Bolt with 4. When it comes to the Olympics, the only athlete to win 200 metre gold more than once is Usain Bolt, so if Lyles was to win gold in Paris next year, it will put him roughly on par with the athletes ranked just behind Bolt in terms of Olympic achievements. Lyles currently stands as the 3rd fastest man in 200 metre history with his PB of 19.31, although when Michael Johnson ran 19.32 to win the 200 metre final at the 96 Olympics, this time was much more impressive relative to his competition in that era, since the next fastest time in history back then belonged to Frankie Fredericks with 19.68. With the Olympic record currently standing at 19.30 ran by Usain Bolt in 2012, Lyles does have the potential to break this record, and if he does so next year while claiming gold, it would do a lot to propel him ahead of Johnson as the second greatest 200 metre sprinter after Bolt. When it comes to consistently running fast times, Lyles is right at the top among 200 metre sprinters, given that he now has the most sub 20 second runs, as well as the most sub 19.8 runs, with 24 to Bolt's 21. For sub 19.7 runs, Lyles also holds the top spot with 17 to Bolt's 14, but Bolt has the most sub 19.6 runs, as well as sub 19.5 runs. When we look at Michael Johnson and Johan Blake, they both had outlier performances for their PBs and didn't back them up with the same amount of similarly fast times as we've seen from Bolt and Lyles. Given that Lyles potentially has another 10 years of competing left, and possibly another 5 years in his prime, assuming no major injuries occur, it is interesting to think about just how many more times Lyles can run under 20 seconds before he retires. Running sub 19.5 is much harder to predict, but in my estimation, Lyles is going to do so at least a few more times in his career, which will leave a huge imprint of his name in the record books for the fastest races of all time list. How do you see Noah Lyles' career progressing, and will we see anyone put a stop to his reign in years to come? I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.